on whenever Jankos is in the game, but interestingly enough, it's G2 that banned that away on the blue side. Kold also picked that up a few times during this series, so we're going to be moving away from the scaling jungle picks once that is taken off the board, and are much more likely to see something like the Rek'Sai for Kold, or maybe the Olaf or Elise for Jankos.
Now, we are seeing the Kayle ban come through as well. Unsurprisingly, you direct it towards G2, you would assume that it would be somewhere in the high priority list, but also the Morgana that we briefly talked about already being taken off the board from G2, and it makes me wonder what will be their priority. Things like Lucian, Cassio, Jace are all currently still up and available, and something they want to try and grab their hands on early. And
we know that picks like LeBlanc can struggle into the Morgana, or even the Syndra as well, these champions that want to take over in the mid lane that you love to see caps on. So it doesn't really surprise me to see G2 take that off the board. What I am really just curious about is what do they value after these 3 weeks, and it's almost impossible to know.
That's always the question when you get down to this first pick. G2 electing blue side, wanted to have this first pick for themselves. It will be the Rek'Sai going over to Jankos. He's played that twice throughout the split, is 1-1 on it.
Yeah, focus on early game here for G2. Look to dominate early on through the top side of their map, and specifically get caps in a winning matchup. If you can have a strong mid-jungle 2v2 with the Rek'Sai, playing the rest of the game becomes a piece of cake.
And Origen already going for heavy dive with the Jarvan and Galio combo. Remember that this Galio can be flexed between both mid and bot. We expect it to be in the support position, but with the Jarvan, you have that added flexibility as well between top and jungle. So Origen kind of flexing on G2 right now, considering how well known G2 are for that flexibility.
And there is the Ryze that you talked about, Vedius, already getting locked in here by G2 on that second rotation. Still a flexible pick. Kalista is the final lock on this first rotation from G2.
So now if I'm looking at G2, I really need Mykix to be on something that it can engage in the bottom lane. So Origen should be looking to ban away picks like the Alistar or the Rakan once they lock their next choice in, because ultimately what G2 are going to be missing with the start of this composition is that engage, especially if they want to put Ryze in the top lane for Wunder.
Where are you looking for your pick here for your Origen, though? You said you have a lot of dive coming out. Do you just want a safe AD carry?
Well,
that's what they want.
Yeah, that's what they want. They're going for more of the scaling option right now. Origen very much directed towards more of the team fight. Excuse me, something that we look at during the regular season for Origen was that they kind of played a variety of different styles. Sometimes they would play team fight, sometimes they play 1-3-1, sometimes they play 4-1. They have a very deep strategy pool, and it feels like that for game one, they're very much around, you know what, maybe the enemy team's going to play safe, maybe it'll be a little bit slower, a little bit of a longer game, so we're going more towards the scaling direction with our composition.
Yeah, and while initially I agree they have a lot of tools to team fight, I still think Origen have left themselves some room to change things up in the draft, especially if you see Galio plus Kaisa. That's a very strong duo lane that can go mid and collapse on side lane. So especially because Origen is on the red side now, they could take a safe top laner that works up against the Ryze and then look for a counter pick for Nukeduck if they wanted to spread out the map a little more.
I like that you assume that Ryze is automatically in the top lane. Remember that it can be flexed into the mid lane as well. And there is room to kind of go all over the shop with that pick. We know that Caps and Wunder very talented on the champion. What I'm interested in this Thresh and Alistair ban. Over in the LCK, you guys might have seen the Ornn pick come through every now and then. And I feel like that given Mickey's champion pool, this could be something that he's thinking about. The Trundle is another option that we've seen come out from Vitality as well.
Even things like the Rakan that Ender pointed out earlier are still on the cards. Two strong side laners eliminated in the form of the Kennen and the Jace from G2. And Origen now maybe just looking at their mid lane pick. They're hovering over Zoe, but of course could go anywhere still.
Yeah, they have a lot of options. I think for them now is when they need to decide whether or not they want a top lane pick that can go hard in a side lane, or if they want to look to solidify that full team fight composition. They still do have the option, and they go for it to actually lock in this Zoe. So Zoe does have a decent matchup against the Ryze. She can outrange him pretty heavily, especially once she gets points in her Paddle Star and can poke from afar. But G2 don't have to take that option, and personally, I would way rather see Wunder on the Ryze in the top lane after watching that game up against Fnatic.
Yeah, for sure. And things like Syndra are champions that we've seen as a form of answer to the Zoe. Right now, when you kind of look across the damage, they have a lot of flexibility. They could pick another mage in mid. They could look for maybe something like a possible Yasuo. They could consider Zed as well, the kind of assassins that we know Caps likes to play. So I feel like they have a lot of room to experiment right now.
Still a lot of options for them. It was the Braum going across to Mithy, so a tanky support. There's the hecarim lock-in the end. It means that Ryze might be flexed to mid.
Yeah, with the cannon and the Jace ban, it actually was heavy indicated that the hecarim could have gone in the top lane. They removed a lot of the answers to deal with his often weak early game. And now Origen are answering by going for the Urgot. The first top lane I think we've actually seen in playoffs of the change in Urgot.
Well, hold your thoughts on that because we still have 25 seconds more to see whether or not they want to flex it. I think it is going to be the Urgot up on the top side of the map. Having the range advantage against hecarim can help early on, especially because early lane for the hecarim isn't super strong. You need that first reset fully before you can start to fully come online here, and the Urgot can use that to his advantage.
Well, if you guys want to get a closer look at the mid lane action, you can check out the POV stream. It's Caps playing Ryze on twitch.tv/Riot Games 2 into the Zoe matchup, not the easiest matchup in the world. Now, guys, we talked a little bit about how long these teams have had to prepare. G2 and Origen, 3 weeks since we last saw them play, and we didn't really want to make any suppositions as to how they were going to play the game. Looking at these two drafts, what style do you think we're going to see today?
Looks to me like 1-3-1 coming out from G2 with a very early game focus. You have Kalista, Braum with a hecarim on the top side as well. I'm expecting a lot of movement towards the bot side of the map, and I do not expect this laning phase to be long if the game plan is going the way G2 want it. Whereas Origen, I think they've gone for a bit of a different route ender.
Yeah, they definitely have. They have a lot of hard engage and engage from range, which is very hard to play the 1-3-1 style into. So especially between 20 and 30 minutes, we will see these two styles clash, and it's going to be so much fun to watch.
It always is. Top two teams in the LEC fighting off for a spot in the finals in Rotterdam. Of course, the loser will play up against Fnatic, but you don't want to add an extra best of 5 to your tally. It could be 2 best of 5s towards the title here. G2 up against Origen, two of our most storied organizations in the LEC. It's game 1, and I'm sure it's going to be a barnstorm.
So I kind of want to draw my attention to the junglers right now, and because I feel like that when we're looking at this Rek'Sai running the Hail of Blades, very big indicator of early game action, very strong in terms of early dueling. And I feel like that when you look at setup, he actually has quite a few options with the Ryze Rune Prison, very easy to lock a target down and then get the knock-up. Good choice of the cleanse coming out from Nukeduck. But on top of that, the Braum, very strong in actually setting up plays towards the bot side of the map, and a lot of damage with the Hail of Blades Kalista as well.
Yeah, if I'm playing Rek'Sai in this game, I'm definitely looking to go towards the bottom side of the map early. And I would love to see Jankos do a more interesting start here on the Rek'Sai, where you can actually start on the Wolf Camp on the top side of the map away from your bottom lane and path down without revealing exactly where you do want to get it started. But ultimately, you have so much kill threat in the bottom lane. Notice Kalista is also running Hail of Blades, which is a very lane dominant option in this 2 versus 2, and he can really try to take control of the bottom side.
We also have the Conqueror on the Jarvan as well, pretty cool. Typically, I'm used to seeing things like the Electrocute for that extra bit of burst damage in the early game. Suggests to me that maybe Kold is looking for a little bit more of a tanky option, more of those sustained damage, longer fights with this kind of rune choice.
Yeah, ever since we've seen a lot more of the Cinderhulk Jarvans, where you go Stone Plate later on and look to team fight, the Conqueror gives you more damage in those extended trades. Also with some nerfs to Electrocute, it became a much worse option for junglers, especially looking for those early game ganks. So Conqueror has taken priority over that option.
Kold pathing up towards the top side. We'll meet Jankos in the jungle, but nothing really going to happen between the two of them. Have to remember, of course, Wunder on the hecarim does not have flash, is running Ignite TP. So if you can catch him out early on, it's very hard for that horse to escape.
I want to keep my eyes on the two junglers right now, because the scary thing for Jankos is he doesn't actually have priority top, but he does have it mid. So Caps makes his way here first, and now we're going to see a fight.
It smites up, Sleepy Trouble Bubble flashed away there by Jankos. Caps has caught out Kold. The paddle star doesn't connect either. Caps forced back to the lane, and Kold should be able to secure the scuttle. Smites it away.
Keep your eyes on Urgot there. Notice how he was the one that was able to start moving down first, so G2 immediately forced to back away from the situation, knowing that they would have been in a numbers disadvantage if they overcommit.
So the start of this game, we were focusing on junglers, and it's already really bad for them. Jankos losing his flash on the top side. Now Kold actually gets control over both Scuttle Crabs, and now with Kold on the bottom side of the map as well, it gives protection for the Patrik Mithy lane, and knowing that there is no flash for the Rek'Sai on the other side means Origen are going to be very comfortable to play out the next few minutes.
And Kold has information as to where Jankos is. He knows that he's on the top side. He saw that the blue wasn't taken, which means that he's allowed to invade towards the bot side of the map. There's push on the bot lane. There's priority in mid as well, so he can feel very safe just putting this Rek'Sai further and further behind very early on in the game.
And Jankos, knowing that he doesn't have that priority on the top side of the map, can't actually walk in and get anything done himself to try and steal away and counter with the Raptors on the other side, unless he does want to go for the more risky play, which ultimately could be punishing, knowing he doesn't have the flash.
You can even see the pings coming out from Origen being like, okay, there's a risk that Jankos is on these right now. Please be careful. Alphari playing underneath his turret. Just having that awareness from the side of Origen, because Kold, he's just gone back to base. He's reset, so he can't look to try and challenge.
And it's what we saw in the second half of the split from Origen. Good tracking of the enemy jungler, putting them behind early, meaning that Origen never fall behind in the early game. They don't kill that much, but they don't die either.
So what we just saw here in the bottom lane, Origen may be looking for some early kills themselves. Mithy and Patrik instantly cleared a ward that was placed, so it allowed Kold to sneak in towards the lane, and they can maybe look for a play themselves. Notice PerkZ has cleanse, but they're going in.
And the knock up straight onto Mickey, uses the Guardian, shields himself up, the Ignite not ticking enough. Caps has now teleported in, and Mithy's very low. Doesn't have the flash in from PerkZ, looking for the final order. The Ren would be enough, they get him. First blood to Caps, and G2 strike.
G2 with the counterplay bottom side. Caps had reset, had TP'd in towards the bottom, and they get the kill. Origen set it up very well, but ultimately could not finish off Mickey.
Really quick reactions there from Mickey as well, showcasing that the moment he was in danger, he was immediately able to throw up that shield and mitigate a lot of the damage. So keep your eyes on Mickey here. He walks out of the brush, and as Mithy walks in, they have no information. They don't know what's going on. So Mickey moves back in, wants to try and get some intel, and he then becomes the target. He actually taught it for the entire duration, but the last second he throws up the shield, mitigates a lot of the damage, gets the Guardian proc as well, and then Mithy has very little to do to get out of this situation. Once you go in on the Galio, it's either commit, do or die.
And there was a big difference at the start of the game where Caps decided to take the teleport. Nukeduck, of course, on the Zoe, not going to have that option. So G2, knowing they had the global advantage, are able to pull that off and find the punish. And you'll notice that it's actually Caps even or ahead in CS in this mid lane. He didn't actually lose much off of that play.
G2 now have about a 600 gold lead, mitigating perhaps how Jankos was put behind in the early game when we saw that fight around the scuttle. Jankos 3/4 of the way to having his flash back up as well, so can start trying to make some moves on that Rek'Sai.
So we keep an eye on who has priority where, because that allows the junglers to do a lot of this pathing at this point in the game. And notice how Wunder has now gotten the push onto Alphari, and he, with a couple of extra levels in his queue, has an easier time now in this 1v1. Also, the Ryze has so much more wave clear at this point in the game than the Zoe does, and this is giving the freedom for Jankos to get control over the topside river and even threaten a potential invade to steal away some of these camps.
Now, if we expect to see these teams look for another play on the bottom side, because some flashes are going to be missing, I was actually trying to track some of the teleports. Wunder and Alphari actually just both used their TPs to get back into lane, so it would be an isolated 2v2 or 3v3 if the junglers were to show up here. And most importantly, for the side of G2, it is PerkZ without his flash, whereas Patrik still has his own, and that's why we see Origen moving down here with Kold to try and help bounce the wave and deny some minions.
Mickey realizes something might be happening, lands the Winter's Bite, but Nukeduck is there as well. They're going to jump across the wall with Blast Cone straight onto a control ward. OG looking for the 4-man dive down towards the bottom side. Jankos is waiting around the corner, but PerkZ caught up. The double taunt lands. Nukeduck takes down PerkZ. Mickey short to follow, and it's a double for the mid laner.
G2 thought they could counter with Jankos, but with no flash on PerkZ, they stood absolutely no chance. Origen now with full control over this bottom side, get 2 quick kills and full damage on the turret plate spot.
Very clean play overall from Origen. As you mentioned, and you already set it up in advance, there were summoners burned towards the bot side of the map. Origen would be looking for another play there. And the important thing was that Nukeduck already started moving before I believe Caps got back to lane. So when we jump into this replay, have a look at the minimap, you can see that Ryze is still underneath his tower. So G2 think that they can buy time, they can play safe, but in the meantime, another fight is just happening.
Caps pulled into the grinder! Alphari gets the kill. He was the one to come down from the top lane. I'm sure we'll have another look at that. But I thought it was G2 that were meant to make all the early game proactive plays. It seems to be Origen who are coming out on top.
Yeah, while their first gank didn't work out in favor of them, they didn't slow down, they immediately retaliated, they looked for a window of opportunity, and they end up making the play happen. So, beautiful stuff from them, and Origen now off to a really strong early game.
And it's all being Kold as well. 0-0-3, 100% kill participation on that Jarvan already.
Now looking at this setup, after the dive bottom lane, Kold and Mithy path through the bot side jungle. Beautiful interrupt right there on the Realm Ward. But of course, there was no vision to actually spot them out, and they knew that. So they walk up the river. At the same time, Alphari had full push top lane. You've been talking about priority so much this game, Vedius. Well, Origen just had it on both side lanes, so it was Caps that was punished because of it.
Yeah, beautiful stuff from Origen, and they're the ones controlling this early game. And one of the questions we had coming into this this game was, what will these teams look like coming into this series? They've had 3 weeks to prepare. It's very difficult for us casters to prepare because we really don't know what these teams are going to look like. And at G2, it feels like that they kind of stuck to what they know. They picked strong lanes, they had an early game plan, whereas Origen, while they do still have team fighting and they have this scaling kind of path and route, they also have options to play around the early game. They have the Galio, they have the Jarvan, and they're not slowing down. They're constantly looking for plays, and every small misposition, they're looking to punish.
That's something Origen can do so well, where they just read what the other team is going to be doing. I do like a little bit more proactivity out of them in this game, but now it is Jankos. He has his flash once again, and this is what we've been waiting for. 9 minutes into the game, I would have loved to see some more moves from Jankos around this bottom side of the map, and now it feels like they need to make it happen because Kalista is supposed to dominate in the laning phase. Rek'Sai is supposed to find early game kills, but no, instead it is Origen with control over the river and that are looking for the Drake.
Infernal 9 minutes in. Jankos maybe going to burrow in here. He tries to use the Prey Seeker, can't land it, and Kold will secure the first dragon of the series. Nukeduck on his way down as well. Mickey's going to land the Winter's Bike there, and I don't think Origen are going to go for anything more. All they wanted really was the Infernal out of that. They do have a 1,500 gold lead coming up to the 10-minute mark as well.
And they've got kills on some of the big carries as well. Alphari is 1-0-0 right now after his good roam towards the bot side. We've also got Nukeduck sitting at 2-0-0. A Zoe, who's this strong this early on into the game, is definitely a scary thing to have to deal with. So Origen, they're in a good spot right now, and they don't really need to force much more because we know they have the scaling advantage on their side, and it's going to be difficult for G2 to execute this 1-3-1 in a deficit.
Definitely is, and you mentioned Nukeduck there on the Zoe, 2-0-0 at the moment. It's so often overlooked as one of the best mid laners in Europe. You know, consistently third best is what we heard in the rap video. But last time these two teams played, he absolutely dominated on the Zed into Casio matchup. He's going to flash away from Jankos here. Last time Nukeduck met up against Caps, it was 5-1-4, and he just took out Caps in 1v1s in lane.
Yeah, and of course, that was when Nukeduck got the Zed counter pick up against Caps' Ryze, and I hope we get to see the full 5-game series. I hope we get to see Nukeduck on red side a little bit more to get some spicier counter picks like the Zed to come out, but ultimately, I think Nukeduck is going to be in a very good spot in this game, of course, with the 2 kills, but also just knowing that you are strong on the Zoe as we approach the mid game and your team has control. That's where we see Zoe's take complete control over the game, where you don't know where the bubbles are going to be coming from, and then boom, you're one shot.
So Origen perhaps looking to open up the map a little bit more to let Nukeduck do that. They haven't really got that much chip damage on any of these towers yet, taking a plate in the bottom lane, a plate in the mid lane. If you were them, what would be your next step? Do you want to just continue with this laning phase?
Well, I think what Origen are doing that I actually like to see from them is they're bringing their dual lane top side. You see Mithy getting engaged on, but really the focus is on the Herald. There's no objective bottom side, but it's Wunder going very deep, trying to get control. What?
Uses the Onslaught of Shadows as well. Mithy flashes away. I mean, the rest of G2 are all around here. It's 5 members strong, so Wunder relatively safe, but that seems a little bit risky.
Well, the difference here is that Alphari is bottom lane with no teleport, so he is going to be cashing in on turret plates, and G2 are feeling a little bit more pressure to perhaps find a fight or to start the Herald. Unfortunately, they don't have that big a window of time because the TP is going to be coming up relatively soon, so it will just be the flash burnt on the side of Mithy and some control gain for G2.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, and the swap from OG allows them to get priority towards topside, and it better enables them to set up for the Rift Herald as well. But when we look at their vision, one of the advantages of Wunder making that play was that G2 actually got a lot of vision, not only around the river, but some in the enemy jungle as well, which means that they get to track what OG is up to, but more importantly, they get to control the Rift Herald. So this game doesn't snowball out of their control, because if they lose that, then the probability of losing the mid tower increases pretty dramatically, and once they lose that, that's when Zoe really becomes a mid.
Look at this TP.
Caps TPing in behind in the bottom lane. Alphari trying to run away, uses the flash, will knock back the hecarim. Wunder caught out with the fear beyond death, but Alphari is done for. Origen going to try and react on the top side of the map as they go for the Rift Herald.
They're going to be starting up this Herald, and there's not much G2 can do with perks, or rather Caps, on the bottom side of the map. So G2 get the kill on the top laner, but ultimately should be gold down in terms of this Rift Herald, which should be able to be used to pick up a couple of turret plates in one of these lanes.
So one of the advantages of this is now Wunder sits at level 10. Getting all that extra gold in his back pocket means that he's going to scale to be an even bigger threat off in a side lane. And I feel like G2, that's their primary win condition right now, splitting Origen apart. So even though they are at a deficit, you know, we talk about how they are very much looking to play around the early game, but that's not to say that if they fall behind, the game is completely over for them. Ryze and hecarim still very potent split pushes and side lane threats, The difficulty will just come with, can G2 successfully split apart Origen, or will Origen be in a strong enough state where they force G2 to group up and play around something like a Dragon or a Baron?
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of different teams, especially here in playoffs, trying to pull off the 1-3-1 style. We saw it from Vitality, even Splice a couple games yesterday. And ultimately, what it comes down to is having pressure in all of your lanes. Because if you have pressure bottom lane, you're trying to take an inhibitor tower or anything like that, you need pressure mid lane to back it up. Otherwise, you just get engaged on and die. So the question for me is less of, does Wunder beat Alphari in the side lane? It's more of, can the three-man of G2 actually take control over the mid game, which is where I'm not quite so sure at the moment.
You can see Origen trying to play around pressure mid-bot now. They stole away a teleport on Nukeduck, so he used that to get down towards the bottom lane. And with an Infernal Drake up in 20 seconds, they're playing the objective game. They get Rift Herald, they get double Infernal, they're in a very good spot.
So Origen aren't going to get any turret plate money from this Herald, but they will get control, and they know PerkZ is in the top lane, so they should be able to knock down this turret very easily, bringing Nukeduck over for the 5-man push. Then they can take the Infernal on top of it. Origen are getting everything they want.
But the thing I really want to highlight here is yesterday, when we saw Splice won a 1-3-1, remember that they kept grouping, and then Fnatic would obliterate them. And the thing that G2 recognize is that this early into the game, if they fought a 5v5, they would lose. So instead, they're just going to accept the deficit. They're going to put the gold where they can by utilizing turret plates, getting solo gold from towers, and they're just going to buy onto the fact that they can wait later on and rely on things like the side lane and 1-3-1.
Yeah, here we go. We got Dominate tweeting out, Kold has played this game perfectly so far, and I agree. You know, I think the bottom lane, they got counter-ganked, and that was a bit unfortunate for them, but he has been tracking very well, and as you can see, 3 out of 3 kill participation there on the Jarvan. Got control very early on in the game, burning Jankos' flash as well, and as soon as the Rek'Sai fell down in the ability to impact the game, that's when we saw Origen was able to take some more control and get to this point where they feel very good.
And they're hitting those first completed items now as well. You've got Stormrazor alongside the pickaxe for Patrik to get that Acathian Rain upgrade. You've got the Luden's Echo and the Black Cleaver completed on Nukeduck and Alphari. And on the other side, Caps is building up towards Seraphs. You do have a Blade of the Ruin King. Almost got a Trinity Force on its way for Wunder, but G2 just feel that little bit behind, even though the gold is only about 600 difference.
G2 right now, advantage-wise, or rather objective-wise, they are definitely at a massive deficit, but as you talked about the items, it's not a massive disparity between the two teams right now. When that Trinity Force is completed for Wunder, I feel like he's going to be, oh, there you go. I think he's going to be a lot harder for Alphari to deal with. I'll be honest, haven't got a huge amount of experience with the hecarim Urgot matchup.
It'll be fun to watch.
On paper, I would assume that the hecarim does have the advantage in a straight-up one.
Yeah, I think hecarim does.
Especially with an Ignite, right?
You have the Ignite. I do believe you outscale in that matchup, especially because with the changes to Q, the longer you fight, the more damage you're going to be doing. As a melee champion, you also get more benefit out of taking the Conqueror. You get a longer duration on the stat buffs there as well. So I do expect Wunder wins out in the side lane, but it's one of those side lane matchups so I don't think you're actually going to be getting kills.
Yes.
You just know you do more damage, you win the fight, so you get pressure. And that is good for G2, but ultimately the difference maker for me is whether or not they can use this Ryze to take towers, because that is a matchup where G2 will be able to make some ground.
We have been watching Caps play the mid lane Ryze this game so far. If you want to vote for who plays in the next, who we see on the POV next game, it's Patrik or PerkZ. You can spam that in chat right now, and it will be decided by the end of the game. Looks like Origen are going to try and make a play down towards this bottom side. Wunder with that Trinity Force, too big to be dealt with by only one man, but Origen will force him out. They'll get their second tower of the game, and with it, probably about 1,000 gold lead overall. Just
notice how many members are towards the bot side as well. You know, in your solo queue game, you'd be like, oh, this Rek'Sai is just overextending in the bot lane, but in the shadows lies in wait Alphari, Mithy, and Kold all ready to counter. The problem with committing this many members is it gives Caps the freedom to push towards the top side and actually take half the HP from this tier 2 top tower.
And can we take a moment to appreciate the vision control Caps has surrounding this push up top lane? I mean, it's just absurd. At some point, the vision becomes almost like not relevant. Like there's some wards that are being like, yeah, they're being packed in by 2 other wards. It's just so much up here to protect the split push from Caps, because again, that I think is where G2 will have the biggest advantage, being able to use both the TP and the Realm Warp to collapse. And when OG do decide to group up as 4 or 5 members and try to force a fight, if they aren't successful in making that engage, we will see Caps getting damage down on the turrets.
Caps has so much vision. If he was playing CSGO, he would be VAC banned for map hacks. It's just too much awareness for G2. You can see Origen trying to do some on the other side of the map, but they don't really need too much deep vision yet. They still have that top tower to take, so as long as they can keep G2 from fully engaging onto them, they should be fine.
So, Jankos doesn't realize that that red ward is there, and I believe he got interrupted by a redemption from Nukeduck just to delay the back. So Nukeduck just being obnoxious, as all Zoe players are. But speaking of Nukeduck, he's actually built up a pretty massive lead in the mid lane right now. He has a 300 bounty on top of himself, and remember, this is the 300 on top of the 300 gold that he is worth as well. So that is a big 600 gold payout that you could get should you find that kill onto Nukeduck, but with the cleanse and the flash still up, I think it's going to be difficult for G2 to lock him down.
Certainly would be. Now, as we approach this 20-minute mark, I feel like the game has certainly slowed down a whole lot, and to me, I asked the question, like, what style of these teams are we seeing? And this is not the G2 that exploded between 15 and 20 minutes. When this team went 9-0 at the first half of the split until they lost their very first game against Origen, they crushed during this period. They were always looking for skirmishes, always looking to blow open the game. Whereas Origen, they know they're in a good position. Even though it's just an 800 gold lead, you have the double Infernal, you have the stronger team fight, so they are more than comfortable slowing this game down. And it feels like they are the ones in control of this game just because we haven't seen anything happen for a while.
But they are giving up tower damage, they're giving up gold across the map. You can see PerkZ now sitting at 2 items as well. And the question we had before was, how much can G2 give up to Origen in the early game? Now my question becomes, how much can Origen give up right now? And what point are they waiting for to really come online?
Well, force use the ultimate. I like that from Wunder. I think he's just conscientious of where Mithy is, and he also knows that Origen will be towards the bot side of the map with the Drake just being alive. But in terms of break points, I think for G2, I mean, it's weird, right? Because we've got to remember that both these teams have very different win conditions. G2, if they tried to play the full 5v5, I think would be at a pretty big disadvantage, especially with the Kaisa and the Urgot in those kind of a situation. And the dive, let's not forget. I mean, obviously Jarvan and Galio, right? But so G2 are constantly trying to play on the side lane. And the thing about OG is whenever they want to commit to something, the reality is they have to commit multiple members because they're at their strongest when there is a group rather than in a skirmish or individual environment. That means that they expose areas of the map, and G2 have the awareness to then go, okay, well, this is a pocket of darkness that we can actually invade with relative safety. And that's how they're actually trading objectives relatively well. And now they've actually built up a gold lead back in their back pocket. So props to G2 in actually recognizing the small windows that they can use to claw some map control back in their favor.
Yeah, and while I say that, of course, stylistically, this game does not match what G2 want, I think compositionally, it is okay, because when you are looking to play the split push style of game, you want to avoid the full-on fight. So if Origen are matching members with you, you don't go for that, and rather you just look to continually build up those small advantages, whether it's stealing away a camp here, getting some turret damage there, and then look for the fights where you do have a numbers advantage.
Let's also remember that one of the big things that G2 was good at was punishing mistakes. And they took risks because they knew that they could just outplay their opponents. But they're going up against the #2 team in our league. They're going up against Origen, the team that is praised for not making mistakes. They are very calm, they're calculated, they're very precise in how they move around the map. And so G2 can't be as reckless or take as many gambles because they know that while they're good at punishing mistakes, OG can be just as good.
Definitely can. You can see Origen just trying to take down this third tower of the game for themselves. Equalizes that gold premium evenly, but Caps, he's been farming so much in the last few minutes, he's even got a bounty on his own head. 200 gold sitting on him because he's farming more than the average of Origen, but the rest of his team is still keeping up as well. So G2 just finding the perfect way to funnel gold into their mid laner.
Yeah, and Medic, a few minutes ago you asked, what is the break point for G2?
I did.
At one point, and we didn't get to answer that, so I'd love to answer that.
Because Vedius interrupted.
I
Always
know.
does.
Usually bully me, not him. I like this change. But ultimately, for Origen, I think that their biggest sort of turning point is going to be the Baron buff, because now we're past that 20-minute mark, and what is so strong against 1-3-1 comps is this major objective that you have to fight over. And if Origen eventually they just walk over to this Baron with 5 members, well, you're going to force some teleports. You're going to force G2 into the team fight that they do not want to take. So as long as they set it up properly and they have, you know, pushed out waves, especially in the bottom lane, so they don't just lose their inhibitor if they try to make that move, the Baron buff is where they will be be looking to fully take control over the map.
So something that's kind of cool that I just noticed is how. So what you'll notice is that on the bot line, on the bot side of the map, Alphari had to catch a wave. One of the things about this is this creates a window in which Wunder can then move from bot up to join the rest of his team. Origen recognized this, and so that they then sent 4 members to the Baron immediately to gain vision control around the objective. This means that Alphari can safely farm bot, and G2 can't force him into a situation where he has to TP in. So it's just very quick. It's a good response of Origen to notice that, again, this is another gap in which G2 can look to punish, and we're just covering our bases as much as we can.
I mean, Origen have total vision control around this area right now. You can see they cleared out the ward. Caps is down towards the bottom side. Maybe Origen just trying to bait out the TP here. G2 not reacting yet. Wunder going to check it in just a second. Caps clearing out the Gromp, but now they'll know that the Baron has been started, and G2 have to fight. The taunt comes out. Nukeduck forces away Wunder. Mithy on that front line. Here's the teleport coming in from Caps. Origen might want to turn this one, but already Baron down to 2,000 HP. Origen reset, Baron resets as well. Wunder not there, but has the teleport to join the fight. Baby on death comes out, doesn't quite connect. Origen will just back away.
It's a great stop here from G2. The Baron was down to about 2k HP, and Wunder almost got one shot by Nukeduck. Wunder still has the teleport, and there's some great flank wards if G2 were looking to punish, but ultimately, they are happy. The Baron was stopped in its tracks, and they only lost a TP off Cap.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that OG just didn't commit to the Baron there. Given that it was only at 2,000 HP, I thought that they would just turn and burn it. I thought they would go for the finish, but I think the issue they had was Nukeduck was spending his damage on zoning away Wunder, and then Mithy couldn't zone away 3 members of G2, which means that Jankos was in flash range of a potential steal. And if OG lose that Baron, then the 1-3-1 becomes very difficult to deal with. So I think OG in the moment didn't want to take the gamble and just said, okay, we'll play it safe.
Oh my lord. That is what Nukeduck can do with just 2 kills. And Alphari's just dominating.
Chaser has to pop the onslaught of shadows there. They sent Wunder to deal with Alphari in the side lane because he has the teleport now, so if a Baron was started, they could go for the double TP in, but Wunder just not in the position to deal with that Urgot anymore.
This will get blocked. No damage come in through Mykix, but I guess Alphari just answered the question of who wins the 1v1 in side lane. Holy moly, with double Infernal. It didn't even look close. Oh.
Cap says, Nukeduck, anything you can do, I can do better. It just shuts down Kold.
It's just Caps and Nukeduck trying to find the 1v1s, trying to one-shot someone before they can even fight back. I mean, I'm glad we're watching them on the POV stream because right now, these 2 players are absolutely the most pivotal for their teams.
Group up in the mid lane here from PerkZ and the rest of G2. That tower still stands. G2 have 2 turrets down in that top lane, so that wave is going to push for quite a while, but Patrik is on his way to deal with it. Look at the damage that's come out from Nukeduck so far. He's only sitting at Luden's and Morello Nomicon. When he finishes that Rabadon's death cap, he is going to be a very, very scary mid laner.
But props to G2 for showcasing the patience. This is how I would define as losing gracefully. You know what I mean? And in the early game, they conceded every objective. They were the one down in towers, but they played to their composition. They knew they were stronger in the side lanes. And every time OG committed multiple members, G2 would try to trade something elsewhere. And I feel like we're seeing, in my opinion, quite high League of Legends, where both team is like very reactive to what is going on. It's like there's multiple levels of mind games where it's like, we're trying to make a play here, we'll respond over here. And now it's getting to a point where you're seeing these small, cool plays coming out from each individual member. Nukeduck landing his skill shots, Caps catching a member out of position, and these are the kind of plays, and these are the kind of players that end up winning these very close matches.
Yeah, I think it's a much more controlled G2 than we're used to seeing as well, who have actually found themselves with a gold advantage through the work of Caps in a side lane, and they've undone a lot of the work that Origen did around the Baron. You know, at 23 minutes when they went for that, we set up how they put down the vision line, pushed mid, put down deeper wards, then started the Baron. Well, that's all been undone now, so G2 are not going to be scared about Origen starting that one up anytime soon.
It's been a few moments since we last checked up on the items. You've got Rabadons, you've got Seraphs and Spellbinder complete on Caps. Bloodthirster finished for PerkZ alongside the Blade of the Ruined King and the Runans. Righteous Glory on Wunder as well. Makes him a little bit tankier and can get onto that backline.
Yeah, of course, Patrik also going for the Stormrazor Ginsus for the double evolve faster, and also the Static Shiv on top of that. So the Stormrazor is going to give the benefits of Static Shiv, that extra damage and AoE bonuses, as well as the fleet footwork. Now Kold just looking for a little bit of control here in the jungle.
Notice how they're taking it in turns in controlling the side wave, along with getting control over Baron. You'll see that in the bot side of the map, Caps doesn't actually have teleport, and that's kind of a dangerous situation for G2 to be in, but they have the Realm Warp as well, so they're confident that he can join the fight should something like that decide to kick off. But the point that I'm making is that they brought Alphari to the mid lane. They said, okay, if you're going to try and control side, we're actually just going to use a numbers advantage to gain control over the river. And what they've done is they brute forced their way in, and now it's G2 who are grouping up. They have control over bot, and it's Origen that are now the one that's running away.
Patrick's out of position. Patrick's totally out of position here. The heal comes out, but the Fate's Call will be used. Void Rush used as well. The chase comes out. Patrick's still dodging away. The Glacial Fissure misses as well. He's eating up a lot of ultimates here, and Origen will try and react on the other side of the map. The Redemption keeps him alive. Almost takes out Jankos. Almost takes out Wunder. Can't quite get it. The shutdown comes out, but Origen trying to push him mid lane to react.
I couldn't believe that Patrik used his heal and his flash to run away when inevitably he was going to die, but the damage he put down onto Jankos stopped G2 rather from immediately turning back towards that Baron. Origen also pushed down mid, so they lose their ADC, but not the rest of the map.
Unfortunately for Origen, they couldn't convert it into any additional objectives, and they must have thought the same thing we did. He's just going to die. Just kind of reset, go back on the base, stock up on wards, and then get ready to move back on the map. But he's survived for a very long time, and if they'd recognized that, they may have been able to push for that mid-tier one, maybe set a vision around the Drake, but instead they don't to convert it into anything.
Yeah, G2 were just like, hey, is this an easy kill? And Patrik is like, no, this is Patrik. Although the least experienced
that was weak. That was awful.
I'm
really
not Jankos, okay? I'm not Jankos. Although he's probably the least experienced player on either of these teams, and a lot of people did wonder if he could show up on a team like Origen after coming through H2K last year. I think Patrick's been probably one of the standout performers for Origen, and his team does play around him a lot of the time as well.
And one of the big criticisms I had of him at the beginning of the split was that he was kind of live or die by Mithy, and Mithy, who kind of struggled at the very start of the split, he died often. Meant that that bot lane wasn't a very reliable one. But as the split's gone on, he's gained a lot more confidence, his champion pool has expanded, and we've heard nothing but praise from the Origen members about how talented of an individual he is. So excited to see what he can bring in this series. Yes, he is currently sitting on 1 death, but he is still a very strong Kaisa. He's still very relevant to the success of this team. And it will be important for him to be one of the big damage dealers as the fights will progress throughout this game.
Yeah, with the Infinity Edge coming in soon, as well as the double Infernals backing him up, he's going to be the consistent DPS on the side of OG, whereas we'll look towards players like Nukeduck to find those ones that overstep on the side of G2 and look for those picks.
I do see Caps actually amassing a 50 CS advantage or so in the mid lane now, sitting on a 600 gold bounty. Anyone who kills him would get 900 gold into their back pocket. He's actually at 13,000 gold, so only the 11,800 on Nukeduck as well. Somehow, G2 have just been able to find more gold on the map than Origen.
It's just really good lane assignments. It is just, if you want to learn about how to manage your sideways, this is a great game to watch because G2 have just been very respectful of their opposition, and they've been very good at maximizing farm across the map. It's been very impressive to watch how they've controlled the game so far, and now they're actually the ones kind of back in control, and honestly, I don't think anyone can deal with Caps. He's level 18. He is by far the highest level in this game, and he can generate as much pressure as he wants because he's sitting on the teleport, which means that you've now got this 3-man unit of G2 in the mid, and see again hecarim up in the top lane. So G2 constantly have access to this Baron River.
Yeah, no one will ever be able to 1v1 Caps, and Nukeduck really doesn't want to be bot lane picking up minion waves, and that sort of brings me to reevaluating how G2 approach a potential team fight, because at 31 minutes in, eventually it's going to come down to a Baron. This ending in split push is very unlikely. I think G2, their best bet is to try to split up the fight with the hecarim diving in, maybe a Realm Warp as well, because Ryze and Kalista, if they're hitting just 1 or 2 members, can absolutely crush.
Caps is on the inhib. Caps is on the inhib right now, and Origen realize they have to do something. Yep, they're going to go for the fight. Alphari's going down towards the bottom lane to try and deal with Caps, maybe actually just teleporting into the fight instead. Baron down to 10,000 HP. G2 can just poke from the side if they want. Wunder has the ultimate to jump into the back line. 6,000 HP. They're going for the engage. Caps teleporting in. The Cataclysm already used. Kold ignited. He is down. The onslaught of Shadow gets onto the back line as well. And here comes Caps. And here comes the rest of G2. Origen made the desperate call, but Patrick's down. Alphari gets 1, but the rest of Origen are just running for the hills. The Realm Warp to chase onto Nukeduck as well. And G2, they say, OG, you can want a team fight all you want. Alphari gets the double, almost gets the triple. The heroes, they just, no way has Alphari just turned that one around. It was all G2, but Caps now comes in, and Caps will clean it up for G2.
Caps and PerkZ are the ones alive. They have the damage to take this Baron, and with the rend to knock this one out, there's nothing Mithy can do. G2 didn't even split the fight. They just said, we'll fight you 5v5, and they crushed.
Incredible stuff there from both teams. It looked like it was G2's fight all the way to Sunday. Alphari somehow managed to pick up a triple kill, but in the end, Caps is just too darn good at League of Legends. He gets the double, G2 get the Baron, and with it a 5,000 gold lead.
Felt like Origen got a little desperate here. They knew the split push wasn't going well. Vedi, show me what happened.
So we're going to start off by taking a quick look at the mini-map, and the first thing you'll notice is that Caps is more than happy to just keep pushing in this bot lane, and Urgot is in a very awkward situation. Does he try to answer, or does he TP in? And he's going to make the decision right. We'll make the 5v5 happen. So as we kick off the replay, what you'll notice is the Origen are confined in this tight space, and it's Kold that starts to engage. He's the one that decides, let's just go on to Mithy, and the problem with this is PerkZ can then drag him out and take him to safety. And this frontline Jarvan cannot soak up all this damage. Immediately then the hecarim dives onto the back line, and then the two carries from Origen get collapsed upon. And at this point, Origen are just split apart. It's only Alphari that can turn this fight around. But then with G2 trying to split up the fight themselves, trying to clean up, that's when Alphari comes in at the end and at least saves the team fight with what he can.
Yeah, Alphari in the straight up 1v3 in the back line was just nuts to watch. I think that's a Triumph peel coming in at the end as well to keep him topped off. But ultimately, the biggest playmaker in that fight was Wunder. The fear that made Patrik run straight into the enemy team and then just huge damage onto that backliner made the swing so massive.
Baron buff remains for 2 minutes here for G2. It only sits on Caps and PerkZ, but Caps we've already seen can just split push 4 days. Looks like G2 are going to group up as 5 for the moment in the mid lane. That inhibitor is open in the bottom lane, but while you have Baron, you might as well use those cannon minions to chip away at these towers.
I would like to see Wunder now move down towards the bot side. He does have to teleport himself, and remember that with his E and ultimate, he can very quickly join a fight. But look at Kold.
Kold going in, the cannon used onto Caps. Here's the hero's entrance as well. Kold goes gold, and Caps slept entrance, putting it all onto the back line. A momentary freeze frame, because in the end, Nukeduck will take down Caps. Wunder has the flank position. Jankos down as well. Patrik's alive. Nukeduck as well. Patrik now goes down. It's all on Nukeduck trying to get the damage into this fight as Alphari steps behind his tower. G2 lose 2. Nukeduck gets 1 more! A consolation kill on the back as PerkZ now caught up, taunted up. The shutdown comes out, and Origen have fought back.
The fight was close, but the re-engage from Origen was so clean. Nukeduck finds the snipe, and then it's Kold that takes down PerkZ. The way this fight started, huge. This Alienware replay, you can see that, Caps tried to get out of there with the Realm Warp stopwatch, but that doesn't work anymore, man. He gets shut down almost immediately, and then it looks good because Wunder is on the flank. He is able to trade kills, so it's ADC for ADC, but then this snipe on towards Mithy. Boom, it's beautiful, and now PerkZ, he has nowhere to go.
Yeah, he doesn't have the summoner spells to escape from this situation, and honestly, great engage from Kold coming in from the Fog of War, but now Wunder
actually kept the inhibitor tower alive in the mid lane by himself versus 3 members of Origen there, so they weren't quite able to break the base of G2.
But this is massive for Origen now, because they've been able to just completely remove the Baron buff from the side of G2. And the fault here from G2 is the fact that they grouped up in the mid lane. They were a 4-man versus the 5-man, and Origen were like, we can take this fight. Remember, they're playing this 1-3-1 style of comp. They want to split apart the map, but because Caps didn't have his TP, they didn't want to send him off to a side lane yet. And that was the perfect window for Origen to then force it and end up coming out on top. Now, the gold is still in favor of G2, but OG are demonstrating that they still have a lot of tools with this composition to find ways back into this game.
They definitely do, and as these team fights have broke out, it feels like both sides are looking to assassinate the backliners right off the bat. But keep in mind, the front line of these two teams still do damage. You have an Urgot that's just pumping out massive DPS at the back of these fights, as well as a hecarim and a Rek'Sai. So you have to keep this in mind in the extended fights that champions like the Urgot can turn these around.
And speaking about assassinating backlines, it's always important to see who has stopwatches left. There's one on Nukeduck, but there is no stopwatch now on Caps. He will get the shield from the Seraphs, but if they can catch him out, they can burst him down, and he won't be able to use that stopwatch to survive.
Well, he is going to sit in a side lane for a little bit longer. He is working towards completing the Zhonya's Hourglass, but honestly, Gold is getting to a point where it doesn't really need that much. QSS has now just been completed for Patrik as well. And this is the kind of game that everyone wanted to see. Very close between the two teams. We didn't see a lot of chaotic team fighting very early on. All we've seen is very good map control between the two teams. Origen being forced into a situation that G2 is able to capitalize on, but then OG doing exactly the same thing back to G2, and this is only game 1.
It's been so crazy to watch. Now, both these teams have different ideas of how to play the next few minutes, because in 1 minute 15 seconds, Origen have their eyes on the Baron. But what I want to see G2 do, and you can see they're thinking about it with Wunder and Caps towards this bottom lane, is with double TP, you can actually look for a 2v1 play on a champion like Alphari to turn the game into a 5 versus 4.
Now with the bot inhib down, this is something that Origen constantly have to deal with, but it will be up in about 2 minutes. You guys can see the timer in your bottom left-hand corner of the screen. This will give you a good indicator of the amount of time that G2 have to play with. So they're actually now setting up vision around the top side of the map. You can see that this jungle is littered with wards. They're going to quickly reset, restock, and so this Baron dance can then start to happen and force OG into a fog of darkness where they can then get picked off. Or we have another crazy Baron fight happen.
I hope so.
Me too. Coming into this next fight, though, look at the items, because there's a Thornmail finished for Alphari, and PerkZ has triple lifesteal items here on the Kalista. The 40% healing reduction from Grievous Wounds is going to be massive, because we know PerkZ just has to hit frontline. Kalista isn't a very long-range ADC. She wants to be hitting the tanks to put her Ren stacks in them, but if you're not getting the healing, the burst damage of someone like Nukeduck can be very threatening.
In terms of summoners, Patrik doesn't have his flash. Mykix doesn't have his health bar anymore. Mithy doesn't have a flash either. He's going to be forced away. Alphari's answering in the bottom lane to the push, has the teleport to join the fight, but maybe Cap's in a good position here as he catches out Mithy. It's a very tanky Galio, though. Here comes Wunder. TP used, unsaw the shadows. They try and get away from it. Patrik shielded up, healed up, and here comes PerkZ on the front line trying to get through Alphari. Alphari's already taken down one. Mithy gets the Justice Punch onto Caps, who has to flash away, but he's pulled back into the heart of Origen, and they rip out the heart of G2 as Caps falls. Origen going to turn straight towards the Baron.
Origen get the 2 kills, and Caps, the carry of G2, is down. Origen in a beautiful position now to start up the Baron. Jankos is alive, has the flash coming up soon, but it would be a miracle to stop this.
He's actually going for the TP into bot lane. I wonder if G2 will be able to actually make this happen. I don't know if Alphari can stop Wunder right now.
Question is how much health is left on the Baron as well, because they will have the recalls empowered up. They're going to get them out. Wunder unable to get there. They're looking for that inhib tower in mid, but I don't know if Wunder will be able to get all of this before Origen react. Baron buff goes down. Origen get it. Wunder unable to take the inhib tower, so Origen lose nothing.
But you're seeing now the power of Zoe at this point in the game, especially around the Baron dances, because let's not forget, that all started because Mithy took such a huge chunk of damage from Nukeduck. Then Origen moved into the Baron River, and they thought, okay, with Mithy out, we have a numbers advantage, it's easy priority for us. And so G2 said, well, while they're split up, let's try and force a fight. Let's try and collapse onto Patrik, who's alone in mid. He has the QSS, he has the GA, he's not that easy to kill.
Yeah, all it takes is that one clutch bubble to turn the fight. And we see it's G2 that wanted to find the engage, but Patrik is not able to have any damage go down onto him. He gets the peel from the rest of his team. Meanwhile, well, G2's backline can't burst down Alphari, so Alphari gets the massive ult to pull Caps in, and once Caps goes down, G2 have no chance.
Big props to Mithy there as well, using his ultimate to keep his AD carry alive, and then immediately being able to land that knockup onto Caps as well was a huge part in turning that fight in their favor. 8, 1, and 12 on the Galio so far. But Patrik, more importantly, has both of his summoner spells still up and available. This is going to be a very difficult AD carry to kill.
And the inhibitors respawned in that bottom lane as well, so Origen don't even have to react to super minions pushing in. OG will come down towards this bottom lane looking for the tower if they can get it. G2 trying to get prio towards mid. There's an Elder Dragon up in just a second's time.
Yeah, we'll be spawning now. G2 clearing out some vision, but there are Baron minions in the bottom lane. G2, though, aren't too concerned with that, because they're just going to start this one up. This could be very dangerous. Kold is on the flank and looking for a flashless Caps.
Patrik moving forward here as well. G2 forced away. The Elder Dragon looks like they might just concede it. That's
they have prio.
They're going to go with the Realm Warp. They're going in.
They can use the Realm Warp mid lane because this tower's taken so low by Wunder.
Elder's already down.
But the Elder is gone. The Baron recalls will come through, but they get the inhibitor. This is big for G2 because this is the only chance in the next 2 minutes and 20 seconds that they can fight back against Origen.
Whew. So they're just going to take the inhibitor trade for this very important neutral objective. Now, Origen, though, they can just group up mid, they can run it down, and they have their eyes set on the mid inhibitor themselves. Note there's still a minute left on the Baron. G2 don't have those Baron-empowered recalls, so they're just left running away.
Yeah, this is very dangerous here for the side of G2, and Origen will be able to run in. G2 need to concede slowly. Okay, clear the waves as best you can, but the team fight is not going to be easy. There are some wards, but no real teleport option without that spell onto Wunder. G2 have to give it up.
They give up the mid lane inhib. There's still a minion wave here as well with it. Origen looking to go a little bit further. How do you prepare for a moment like this? Well, G2 tried to against Fnatic in week 9. Will that pay dividends? Mithy there on the front line. They force Nukeduck back. The Glacial Fissure doesn't land. And G2, they're conceding slowly, but they did not lose anything more than that mid lane in here. PerkZ going in. The engage comes out. That's a lot of damage already. PerkZ is taking out Mithy on the back line. Nukeduck's getting chased away, but Patrik's still alive, and Jankos can't get onto him. 2 GAs popped in the middle of a fight, and it's a cluster of damage as G2 just try and pick one player up at a time. They get to Nukeduck, gets the kill as Patrik secures it in the end. OG get 1 for 2.
And once again, G2 find another big fight, but Origen are resilient. They convert it into another tower, and both these teams walk away, I guess, happy. Both of them.
Just give me 5 games of this. Just give me 5 games of this.
So let's actually have a look at how they start off. The first thing to note is how Nukeduck uses his ult aggressively. That then allows PerkZ to get this tiny bit of chip damage, and the exhaust comes out onto Mithy. Yes, he misses his ultimate, but then Origen funnel themselves into this choke point.
Like, why go here?
This is when the ultimate from PerkZ comes through, the big knockup comes as a follow-up, and then Mithy drops. And then you have Wunder zoning the carries away, giving Caps and PerkZ the free time to just melt through the front line, while Nukeduck is missing pivotal skills. If he landed that Q, maybe this fight goes more in their favor, but it ends up being a 1 for 2 in favor of G2. They buy a little bit more time, and with the Elder wearing off, we're now waiting for the next big Baron buff.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real here. Origen overstayed in that mid lane. They had a big wave top lane they could have gone back for, and then they put themselves in this super tight corridor where Zoe has to throw skill shots in a straight line. There's multiple tanks being able to block it, so it was the perfect time for G2 to find the engagement right there. Origen can't fight in positions like that, or they give G2 a chance in the 5v5.
44 minutes in, there's 500 gold between these two teams. Baron buff has expired, Elder's expired as well. Everyone's sitting at full build pretty much, including Caps now having that Zhonya's PerkZ. 5 items strong, looking to help his team into the finals in Rotterdam.
So OG are actually much happier in this situation because now G2 are constantly grouped up as a 5. And while we have seen G2 have won a couple of fights, usually the situation just has to be very dire for Origen in order for them to win them. Origen, if they just have the straight 5v5 front to back, they're very confident they can win it because of the long range from Zoe and the mobility that Patrik has on the Kaisa.
So keep in mind what's going to be happening in the coming minutes, because 40 seconds away from Baron, OG need control over mid, because what could very well occur is Origen push mid, walk in towards the Baron, and then you can use the Ryze well more. Because you have super minions in mid lane still, if you are G2, you don't have to look for the fight. You can look for the backdoor on either an inhibitor as a solo on Caps, or just take those super minions into the enemy base, avoid the 5v5, and look for the race.
And you know G2 is the kind of team that will do that. The other thing you have to be very conscientious of is a sneak Baron from G2 as well.
True.
Realm Warp into the back of the pit can be something that you do completely by surprise. They have one of the Mountain Drakes as well, and with the Kalista, hecarim, Ryze, you can just melt through that. You might not even need the jungle, but here's the TP.
behind, Origen going to force the fight as they go for the engage onto Jankos. Here's the hero's entrance as well. PerkZ flashes out of the back of it. The chase is on for OG. Nukeduck getting in, but the cleanse from PerkZ will keep him alive. Kold gets Jankos. Cap still pushing on the sideline. He's realm warping forward. Wunder now on the flank, trying to get together with his mid laner, just forced away. Caps is going for the inhib.
Here's the thing though, Origen did not pull the trigger to move towards the Baron. They're losing pressure on this bottom lane. Now G2, they're starting up.
They've gone to answer Caps.
They have the Ren. They have the Ren. They got the inhibitor and all of G2. Oh,
this is a big Caps. Caps is just outplaying as well in the side lane. We should switch this Baron's to G2. Let's see what Caps is doing. The Zhonya's comes out from Nukeduck. He's almost taken out. Caps still in there. Caps is trying to 1v3. In the end, he goes down. Baron goes across to G2.
G2 still get the Baron. Unbelievable.
And this is what is so scary about G2. Conventional League of Legends, they just throw that out the window. They just come up with, like, they should be in a disadvantage in this situation. Remember, they're the ones that have just lost their jungler. They're the ones that, like, they're flat. The AD carry doesn't have a flash, and Caps just makes this play where he's like, 1v3, I can get the inhibitor, I can get out. He goes back in, and he's like, I can win this fight.
And he's dodging everything right now, by the way. Forces the Zhonya's out of Nukeduck, using the phase rush and the movement speed from the kit to get away. Oof. Gets a little hypey at the
he
end.
Flashes into the taunt. But now
man,
it's G2 with the Baron, and they need to try and use this somehow. They need to threat. Like, ideally, they want to split apart the map, but OG, they keep grouping up, and now the Elder is in 30 seconds, so G2, they'll be forced to fight again, because a second Elder, they can't afford to give up.
But again, look at this. There's an Elder in 25 seconds, and mid lane inhibitor has respawned. I wonder what Caps will do.
This game is incredible. We're a minute away from the longest game of the split at 48 minutes and 5 seconds. That was G2 Fnatic. A very similar game to this one in all states of affairs. First versus second, G2 and Origen are showing us why they tipped the standings at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, it's funny. Yesterday when... I might not have time for this story.
Is it a quick one?
No.
Then no.
All right,
just talk about the game.
Yeah, I'll tell the story a little bit later, but the Baron, the Elder Dragon is now being set. Remember that the bot inhib has been taken. All of the other inhibs have respawned, which means that G2 should have constant priority. But with this being kicked off...
Can't give up second Elder.
You don't want to, but G2, again, they don't play conventional League. They're going to find a new way of doing things.
Caps going towards mid.
They're going to do it.
More 4,000 HP left on the Elder. Jankos trying to get in. Jankos steals it away, and now G2 are just going to force down mid. All of Origen need to back away to try me out, but Jankos is keeping him around. He's down into the GA. Mithy there as well. They get Jankos, but who has been able to back? Nukeduck's got away. Kold sticking on Mithy. Keeps Patrik in the round, and there's the Nexus Towers going down. G2, they steal it away, they can do it, and G2 take the Nexus in an incredible game one.
Are you kidding me? It happened again.
This time round, Origen didn't have the Baron buff. They had the Elder Dragon stolen from them, and G2 made the decision. We can end this game right now. Beautiful League of Legends between the two teams. Fantastic game one.
Give me 5 games of that. Just give me that until I run out of breath. That was incredible. G2 with the 4D chess with the cosmic brain calls. And I can't believe that was how the game ended. But G2 show us when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to the late game, you can never count them out. Both these teams will be going to Rotterdam next weekend along with Fnatic. Be sure to get your tickets for the main event at eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam. Remember, the winner will go straight through to the finals. The team that loses today will face Fnatic in our semi-finals next Saturday.
And it's possible we just get a rematch of this as well. Just give me 10 games of this. Why not? You have to see this in person. I just can't believe it.
What a great game one. And like, mad props to Origen, right? Because this was not a one-side. Like, when G2 and Fnatic played, there were a lot of mistakes, right? Like, it was G2 punishing over steps, over confidence, over eagerness from Fnatic, and there were moments where you could say, okay, this game has become a bit of a mess. But this game, I felt like it was just nothing but proactive plays, really good vision control, management of sideways, playing towards their win conditions. Like, there was just such good decisions from both teams, like multiple points. It was just such fun League of Legends to watch. This is what I want to see from our two best teams that we have in Europe, and I'm so happy that this is the best of 5, because this is what we want.
It was just amazing. To tell you more about G2's win, we're going to pass it over to Shox and the analysts.
Thank you very much. And Vedius, I have to say that I just concur. I concur with everything he said. If we get 5 games of this, I will be the happiest girl on earth. But I am already, because I'm sharing the desk with these two legends to talk about that legendary game. Now, I want to throw it on its head and start with the final replay, because it was just so incredible. It could go either way. You think Origen's going to commit hard to that Elder Dragon, which they do, but then in the end, G2 run for the base. Yamato, what happens?
I think it's a classic situation. You can see it lining up always with the Ryze. You can't forget about it. And then the steal to top it all off. It's so hard because they can't channel the recalls. They need to kill the Rek'Sai. They can't get into the base, and it's just a classic.
It's crazy to me, the ability of G2 to create kind of like split-second opportunities off the sheer talent of their players. Caps this game was an absolute monster. I believe like early on, Yamato, both you and I were like, there's no way they come back with this composition. They lost the early game. Like, they're just going to get outscaled and walked over. But Caps, just like Spider-Man, just like held the fort together everywhere on the map. Top, mid, bot, around the Baron, on the inhib, around the Elder. Just crazy.
I completely agree with you, and I think we can go down the line and say that, and I think that is what is that impressive about this G2 roster, is you can count on any of those guys to make that split-second decision that turns around the game. As you say, Jankos comes in, and he knows he's going to steal that Elder. He knows that he needs to do that for his team.
PerkZ is already on the Baron as Kalista.
Yes, PerkZ is already on the Baron. Everything just seems so smooth, a well-oiled machine. But I think we cannot be fooled by the Christmas of that Christmas. Yes, also
it was a
watching
gift.
was Christmas, but crispness of that ending, because this game could have gone either way. So walk me through it, because it started out great for Origen.
I think Origen had a fantastic start. I think we all thought that G2 would be the ones coming in guns blazing with the early game, but Trashy had some of the best pathing I've ever seen, and they ended up ahead in it with a composition that is all about the grouping. But the execution just wasn't there for the OG roster. They tried to always farm the side lanes, always keep up and farm, and the mistake was that they didn't play around the Fed Zoe. They just had to push mid, pressure into the enemy jungle, ignore the top wave completely, set up the vision, and just set up traps.
Yeah, that was the scary thing, is that it felt that G2 were going to be put on this timer, that, yeah, they're going to get some time to get some farm, maybe, but otherwise, Origen are just going to turn on the Baron, they'll close it all up, they'll play around the choke points with Zoe, and then burn the Baron and then turn it, and it would just be over. But the fact that Caps and also Origen just never having the right lane assignment was able to stall out for so long, to extend that window where Origen were like, okay, you got to go to the Baron now. Eventually you need to go to the Baron. You need to start heading to the Baron, and Caps meanwhile was like level 18.
Yeah, and also many times in that mid game I thought, Origen, you surely are stronger. You also have 2 Infernal Drakes. Like, just do something and push, and they didn't. And I think in the end, that is also what we should fault them for. But obviously, G2 played phenomenally. Let's take a look at some of the replays that put it in their favor when they shouldn't have been in the position to take it. G2 here will challenge this Baron.
I think this was the ticking time bomb. Ryze is split pushing on bottom, and it forces OG to do this Baron situation that's just not good for them. They got the Baron damage onto them, and the situation is not good for them any longer.
Yeah, but you were saying, Yamato, you know, after this play, they did get the teleport away from the Ryze, and so there's this huge window where suddenly that Urgot can actually be much can't match him, but Origen never really used it, because suddenly then Caps is always on the top side, and Origen, instead of again trying to get priority over the top side, were just reacting to G2, funneling and grabbing the waves, and never setting up their own proactive play around this monster.
Yeah, and we
objective.
see it also here. There's only 2 members alive of G2, but it's Caps and it's PerkZ, and they know because of the pressure that Ryze put on that bottom lane that Mithy has to go back. Baron for them. Fantastic at that point in the game. To be honest, did you think, okay, this is now an easy going for G2, or what was your thoughts about the continuation of that game?
What's funny about how G2 is playing is when they are in a worse position, they play so much better than they are playing when they're in a better position. Because when they went for the 5v5s, lost the National, stalled out the game more. So I felt like when G2 is behind, they should just think they're behind all the time.
Yeah,
and then
it
they'll play
looks
much
like
better.
it. They played better when they were just in crunch time, because as you said, after that, it was OG fights, winning fights, back-to-back, 2 in a row, and it looked like they were completely in control again. And this is where I think, OG, why didn't you do that 20 minutes ago?
And this is also what Yamato's talking about. You know, again, if G2 have the Baron at this point, what's been working for you the entire game? Wunder was on the bottom side of the map. That minion wave is crashing on the inhib. He could have had a Baron wave there, and you just continue to rip Origen apart. But so I think kind of the key takeaway is that both teams made mistakes. Both teams were able to capitalize very effectively on the mistakes made, and that's exactly what you want to see from a best of 5 and what viewers tend to really like in fantastic League of Legends. There's a lot of blood, there's a lot of action, it goes right down to the line. A lot of people like to praise like the clinical.
That's what I'm here for, and you see it here for OG, but I have to say, unfortunately for OG, there is just more of that on the side of G2. We're also going to take a look at some highlights from Caps, Frosk, Yamato. We talk so much about this guy, best player EU ever produced, yes or no, but when you look at the things he does in a to concur.
I'm going to say a hard yes.
This is a bit of a Jizuki cosplay. I really like the Mithy flash. This is just too hard to ignore it, because it didn't make a lot of sense. And then here it's so close, because if he gets the E bounce off from Ryze and then the Q, maybe he gets a double kill there, and maybe he creates something else.
Yeah, I think we can take a look at the final replay again. We don't have to maybe, but we can. The fact that in the end it turns on its head and G2 wins it. And for me, it's pretty difficult to look forward now, because so much happened in this game. And I think OG obviously should hopefully have a clean slate and think, hey, we didn't do too bad, we just made some mistakes. But I think that mental exercise is very, very difficult when you know that G2 can always do this. And, you know, that Fnatic game is also in the back of your mind, how they came enough. Should they just do the same?
I think they could. Honestly, like with the time you have between games to talk, I think it's very straightforward. OG, they just needed to understand how they execute the 1-4 against 1-3-1, because they tried to keep up and farm, which is the wrong approach. They just needed to pull the